This video is going to walk you through the full process of compositing our animations together. It's going to borrow a lot of skills that we've already learned from the looping GIF activity. So what we're going to do first is scan the frames from our first sequence. You're going to open up CamScanner, and just like with our looping GIF activity, you're going to mount your phone using your desk mount, and you're going to hit that camera button at the bottom of the home screen. Here one more time. And you are going to set up your first frame, like so, and position your frame in the middle, like so. And also make sure that you tape the corners of your frames, so when you place it, it's in the same location each time. I've already taped it from the last time that I was scanning. You can zoom in by using your 2 fingers on your phone and zoom into the frame. Try to get it as level to your picture as possible. And then down at the bottom, make sure that you selected batch, not single, but batch. And then you're going to hit the camera icon to take the first scan. Once you do that, you can bring in your next frame, like so, and then your last frame here. I'm just going to do those 3 for sake of time, but depending on how many frames, you might have also 3, you might have more than that. But once you're done, we're scanning all the frames just from that first sequence, and then you can click that bottom right icon. Now, one thing that CamScanner is going to want to do automatically is it's going to automatically crop your frames. Just make sure that you get the whole area like so it stays consistent from frame to frame. And this one as well, looks like it cropped the right half. And that one is okay. So once those are done, you can also, I would recommend doing this now, is just rotating it to be the right orientation. You can do this on Photoshop too, but I think it's easier to do here. And once that's done, make sure that you have selected your filter. Once more, so filter, and click on the magic color filter, because that's going to do a really good job of adding contrast to your drawings and make it easier to color. You can then hit the check mark in the bottom right, and then it's going to bring you to this PDF. I'm going to rename it. It's going to call it Sequence A. Hit share, and then I'm going to share my PDF. It's fine if there's the watermark because it's the free version. Hit share in the top right, and if you have another Mac, you can airdrop it to yourself. Otherwise, you can email it to yourself. There's that sound. Once you've done that, you're going to meet me at my computer, and I'll show you the next step. Once you've gathered your PDF from CamScanner, here's mine, it's called Sequence A. You're going to open up your earliest memory folder. This is the same folder that I was doing all my audio edits on. See, there's my sound collage. And you're going to put Sequence A into your footage folder, like so. Now, you might have noticed before that in the footage folder, we have 2 folders within there. There's one called Proxies, and then there's one called Raw. This is a workflow that people who do live action video often use. And the difference is that Proxy is like a low resolution or a simple, video for what you are editing. And it's usually a smaller file size. The raw files, this is the high resolution files. And in our case, this is where our colored versions are going to go. So there's mine. So we're actually going to take this sequence A PDF and just place it in your proxies folder there. Another thing you should do while you're here is you can actually take that sound collage footage. So there's my sound collage. I'm going to put that in the audio, and I'm just going to put that in the music folder. Looks like it's already there. That's fine. Just to clean this up. So this is just my finished footage. So let's go back to footage, proxies, and then sequence A. And again, a lot of this repeats what we were doing with the looping GIF. You're going to right-click that, open it with Adobe Photoshop, select all the frames. So you can do that by selecting the first one, holding down Shift, and then selecting the third one or the last one, whatever you're at. And then hit OK. All right, and so here in Photoshop, it'll open up 3 separate times. The first thing I want to do, they're all rotated right now, but if you didn't rotate it on CamScanner, you can go to Image, Image Rotation, and play around with that. So what I want to do next, now that I have opened up all 3 stills from my first sequence, is I want to crop them so they're all consistent. So you can go to your crop tool there, and that's the shortcut for that is C, and you can click and drag that corner, and I'm just going to try to get them as close to the edge of the paper as possible. Again, all these checkers are just transparent background. I'm just going to crop it to the white border, and I'm going to do that to all 3 of them. Hit C to bring up the crop tool. Crop them like so. And this last one, hit C and bring it to the border, and then hit Enter to accept the crop. I didn't hit Enter here, and there it is. And same with this one, hit Enter to accept the crop. Now on CamScanner with the magic color filter, it did a really good job on mine to turn all the paper into a flat white and then the pencil lines into a gray or black. But again, if you need to do any tweaks to that, you can go to Command L to pull up your levels, play around with the levels, but to be honest, I think this is pretty good. So I'm going to leave that as is. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to open up my Actions tab. And if it's not showing up for you, just go to Window, Actions. Oops, once more, Window, Actions. And if you remember from the looping GIF, I gave you all an action that's going to run through a series of scripts that's going to make it easier for you to color. So you can run that same action by selecting, there it is, bitmap 300, hitting play. And you know it works if you have this transparent checker background beneath it. I'm going to do that once, and then I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to navigate to where it is. There it is, earliest memory. I'm going to go to Footage, and this is where I'm going to put it in the RAW folder. Footage, RAW, and there you can see it there. I'm just going to name it there. These are my old ones, my actual ones, but I'm going to save it again. Here it is, and then make sure that the format says Photoshop. It should be the default, and it should have a .psd file at the end. There's that. I'm going to do the same thing here. Run the action, bitmap 300. Go to File, Save As. And then just save it as a Photoshop file in Footage, RAW, A. Last one. So now we've saved all of our raw stills as PSD files. We're going to be using these files, and we're going to be doing all our color edits to the layers just like our looping GIF activity, except now we're going to also be using these PSD files as the frames in Premiere Pro. And that's how we're going to put our video together. And the reason why we keep them as PSD files is now we can edit them, and if there's something that we don't like about a particular frame, or a color that we want to change, we can just go back to the PSD file, change the color, and then it'll update on Premiere Pro, or we can make it update on Premiere Pro. So the process for coloring is the same as in the looping GIF, but right now I'm going to go through some other advanced coloring techniques that some of you have asked me about. So the first thing to note is that in this script, I actually already preset it, so it's going to give you 2 layers. It's going to give you this background copy layer, which has all the line drawings, and then the layer 1, which is just a blank canvas, and that's underneath the background copy. The reason why you do that, or the reason why I did that, is so that you can separate the lines here in background copy from the fills layer 1. So I could, for example, I'm going to choose a really bright color just so you know exactly what I'm doing. I could choose a color, go to my brush tool, and I can use my square brackets left and right to color things. And I can color underneath the lines, and I don't have to worry about coloring over any of my lines or shading. It just appears underneath it like so. And that's the reason why I had it preset to give you that layer 1 behind it. And then you can go to your paint bucket, G to fill, and you can clean and you can color it that way. So that's one way you can do it. For some of you that are doing really fine details, that's one way I would do that. Another way that you can do it that builds off of what we learned last time with the looping GIF. If you remember last time, what we were doing is we were selecting the background copy layer, and then we're using the paint bucket tool to color in enclosed spaces like this pebble here, like that. And that works pretty well. You know, you can do that if that is continuing to work for you. But another thing that you could do is use the magic wand tool. Now this magic wand tool is over here. And so if you wanted to do what I've been doing, where I kind of separate my lines from my colors, the way you could do exactly what I just did is go to this, select magic wand tool. I'm going to click on this open space here. There's my open space. Go to my layers, and there I can fill that whole section like so. And again, you fill that with the paint bucket or the G tool. There. Now, to build off of that even more, some of you have asked about gradients with your animation. So here's one way you could add gradients to your to some of your coloring. In case you don't know what a gradient is, I'm going to give you an example right here. A gradient, it lives underneath the paint bucket tool. It's also, the command is G. And when you open up the gradient tool, in the top left of Photoshop, it's going to give you these colors of gradients that you can do. So it's got some basics. The basic one is always going to be what the top foreground color is here, and then the bottom foreground color is here. My red is my background. There's my yellow, the foreground color. So that's going to be the basic, and I would just stick to that for now. Just use those 2 colors and see what gradients you can make with that. And so now that we learned how to magic wand, let's say I wanted to add a gradient of this yellow to red, like a sunset, to this this rock right here. Well, I'm going to select the background copy. Now, this is really important. So you always want to select the layer that actually has the lines. Because if you select this blank layer and try to magic wand it, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to select the whole canvas, nothing more. If you select background copy, and then go back to wand, and then wand that area, there you'll be able to select that area. You can go back to the layer. I'm actually just going to call this fills, so you know that that's my fills. And then once you're there, you can click on the gradient tool. It's this gray or black to white square. Click that. Again, it's going to go from yellow to red. And you can click and drag a gradient like so. So now I've got this really interesting colored rock. Now, one thing that happened here is you see all of this stuff that lives underneath my shading that didn't get selected, which is kind of a bummer. So if you want to go back in time, you can go Command or Control Z on a PC and go back to your magic wand. Click on the line layer, select that fill, and then one edit you could do, I'm going to find it first, I think it's called expand. There you go. You can go to, there you go, select, modify, expand. So right now I've selected basically up to this border, this black border right there. But if you expand this selection to say 3 pixels, I think that should be good. It's going to grab a little more, it's going to seep into these areas. And then I can go back to my gradient tool and do it like so. And so that did a better job of filling in those areas, but there's still some over here that didn't get selected. For things like that, I would go back to my eyedropper tool, which is the letter I, and it looks like this. Eyedropper that color, and then go to B for brush, and I would just brush over those areas. Now another shortcut I want to show you, which is important for pretty much everyone, especially anyone that's using a boil, is let's say I have this frame and I want this to have the same exact coloring as this one here. Well, what I can do is I can select this, and this is a reason why we separate out the lines and the fills. You can select this layer, there's my fills. I select that layer, and then I'm going to go here to Marquee, and I'm going to hit Command A, which is select all. On a PC, it's Control A. And you'll see I have this little marquee, this blinking line around the edge of my screen, like so. You're going to do that, hit Command C to copy it, or you can go to Edit, Copy. And then go to the file that you want to paste all those colors into. There, I'm going to select layer 1, and you're going to hit paste. And there, it pasted it into layer 1, and all you got to do now is drag that over to make it fit as best as you can. There's some areas here where it gets a little bit off. It might not be the cleanest fit, but I think you can get it really close and then clean up the edges. You can also erase with your eraser tool. That's E for eraser. If that's easier for you, please make use of that to copy your fills. And those are all of the advanced Photoshop coloring techniques I wanted to show you. This is how the industry does it. It sounds tedious, but I promise you this is faster than what it was like before. One last thing regarding Photoshop that I wanted to go over. So some of you, right, have sequences where you have this background layer like so, and then I've got this foreground layer like this. If you want to do that, if you have your background and your foreground, one thing to keep in mind, here I'm going to open up one of my raw files for the colored foreground like here. All right, one thing to keep in mind is you do not want to color in the background. Really for both, you don't want to have to color in this background you're going to leave it this checkerboard white and gray square, or sorry, this white and gray checkerboard pattern. And you're going to do that so it's transparent. So that way when we bring it into Premiere Pro, this whole image and like all of those frames, like this one here, that one there, and then that one there, can all sit transparently on top of another image that you create. So yeah, just keep that in mind when you're working with Photoshop edits. So continue coloring all your frames, stop here, and then once you're done coloring, I'm going to move on to show you how to import them into Premiere Pro. Once you've scanned and colored all of the frames for the first sequence of your animation, the next step is going to be compositing these frames on Adobe Premiere Pro. Now this process of putting our animations together is different from what we've been doing before. Before, we've been doing all of the shooting and capturing of footage using a stop-motion studio app on our phone. But for larger projects that use color and sound and layers, we're going to be using Premiere Pro. So here's my folder. Again, this is my footage folder, my raw, and then A, I put in the folder A for sequence A. And we're going to open up a new project. Now I've already worked on this before, but I'm just going to select my project file folder. Again, we're in earliest memory project file. And I'm just going to call this demo to show you how this works. All right, and in case you're not on editing, we're going to switch to the editing mode at the top right here. Before you do anything, and especially before you upload any of your still frames, you're going to go to your settings, preferences, sorry. So if you go to, in a Mac, you're going to go to Premiere Pro, Preferences, General. On a Windows PC, it's going to be a little different, but find the General Preferences. And then you're going to go down to the tab that says Timeline. Here in Timeline, we're going to be editing this section right here, which currently says Still Image Default Duration 2. Now, I believe the default setting for most of your Premiere Pros is going to be 150 frames, which means that whenever you upload a photo, a still, or an image onto Premiere Pro's timeline, it's going to set the default duration to 150 frames, which is very long. That's about 5 seconds of time. And I'm going to bump that down to 2 frames. So just like in Stop Motion Studio, each one of our images is going to appear for just 2 frames of time. You hit OK. And once you do that, the first thing I'm actually going to do is upload my audio. And so I'm going to go to my earliest memory folder. I moved it from exports to audio. And I think I put in music. Yeah, put in music. There's my sound collage. And it's going to go in here. There's the file. I can click and drag that. Now the next setting that you want to change is the sequence settings. So if you go to sequence settings, you have a time base right here. And the default is 29.297 frames per second, or 30 frames per second. This is fine for digital videos. A lot of things on YouTube default to this codec, but animations and films are usually set to 24, and that's what we've been using. So just change it to 24, so all the math between my work and yours is going to be consistent. And there you go. All right. Now once you do that, we've changed our settings. We're good to go. I'm going to start uploading my raw files. So I'm going to double click here. These are my inputs. I'm going to go to earliest memory. I'm going to find footage. And I'm going to select raw. And I'm going to select A, the whole folder A. Not just one of these, but the whole folder. And if you click on A and import, it's going to ask you to import each of your files. So there's my A1. If I show you in Finder, that's this one, A1.psd. For this, the default settings are fine. Just say merge all layers, hit OK, 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 OK to all of them. All right, and now here, we've been given a folder, and the terminology that they use on Premiere Pro is a bin. If you can imagine, before they had Premiere Pro, when they were doing video editing, all of the different sequences of film would show up on a reel, and all the reels would be going into an actual bin. And so that's what they take this name from. If you double click on this, here you open a new tab. That's bin A, and that's showing you these, this is my 9 frames that I've been working on. Similar to other things, when you double click it, you can get a feature there, like so. And if you want to go back to see all your other stuff, you can just click on this tab to the left of bin A. So what I'm going to do first is I have 2 layers, and so I'm going to be using these 2 video tracks, V1 and V2. Just like in Photoshop, the closer to the center, this is the center line where V1 and A1 split. The closer to the center, the further behind the image is. And so if you see this image, this is my boiling set of rocks. That's my background, and I'm going to set that behind. So that's just going to go beneath the other part of the animation, which starts here and goes like so. So here's these 3. I'm going to click them, highlight them. If you hold down Shift while you click, you can select more and drag them to the timeline like so. And so here they are. Each of these, and now your timeline might be much wider. It might look like this, and you'll wonder where you put it. That's because, again, we changed our input settings here, the timeline, to be 2 frames. So each of these are just a little block of animation, 2 frames. If I play that really quick. Okay, you can barely see that. And now, what I'm going to do is now what you're going to do is you're going to click here with your cursor, make sure your cursor selected here, or hit the letter V as in Victor. You're going to click and drag to highlight these 3, right click, and then go to group. What this means that now anytime I click on one of this trio, all 3 move with me. I'm going to highlight that, and I'm just going to hit Command C or Control C on a PC, and then paste it with Command V, and it's just going to paste, and it's going to add these 6 frames at a time. And I'm going to look here at this play position. I'm going to make it end at 3 seconds, because that's where that first audio sequence ends. All right, and now I'm going to play that back and see what it looks like. All right, and there it is. That's that boiling line. What I want to do next is I want to add this next sequence, which starts with, you can't even see it, but it's a shadow. Starts with this rock falling from the sky, and then it's going to end up tumbling off the screen. For this one, I'm actually going to toggle and double click the audio so I can see it better. And I'm going to click and drag all these 7 frames over. Again, the default settings is 2 frames. It's just going to drop it in to be 2 frames, like so. Just like the other one, I'm going to highlight them, right click it, and then hit group. So I can move this as a block. And I'm going to play that, see what it looks like. All right. Just so you know, my Premiere Pro is lagging because I'm screen recording, so the video card is slowing down. But if you saw it in real time, it would look pretty good. All right. So I'm going to take this, and now what I want to do is I want to make a copy of it and paste it so it's above this second sound cue that we see here, and the third sound cue there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it by clicking it, right-clicking, and then go to copy. And now let's see what happens when I move my playhead like here, and then I go right-click. Actually, it's not going to let me, but you can go edit, paste, or Command V. So I'm showing you this because this is an error that will happen often. And what it did was it actually pasted over my boiling clip. So if I look at it here, that's not what I want to happen. I want this boiling to keep staying while this goes on top of it. Well, you might think, oh, I can move that there, and then it should be fine, right? Once more. Nah, because then what happened is this covered over the boiling clips, and when I moved it off, it removed them. It removed the memory of them as well. So I'm going to Command Z, go back. So here's what you got to do. So again, I right-click this sequence, copy it, and I want to paste it in V2. So in order to paste it in V2, just got to toggle those two off. So only V2 is selected, and there it pastes to track V2. And here's the second one, paste to track V2, and now let's see that back. And once more. All right, and that's looking good. Now there's a couple other things I just wanted to show you how to do in Premiere. So you'll see with my video, my animation actually doesn't take up the whole frame, and then the default background or backdrop on Premiere is just a plain black backdrop like so. But let's say I wanted to change that. What I can do is add a matte background. And so if I go here to Project Demo, click back here, you might be on Bin, and I right click this, I can say New Item, Color Matte. When you click on Color Matte, it's going to give you a default settings of whatever the video is at. These things are all fine, you can just keep those as is. But you can hit OK, and it's going to ask you what color background you want to have. So I can click and drag, I can play around with this color editor. What you can also do is use this eyedropper. Just like in Photoshop, you can click it and you can grab a color from the video, from the palette you're using. And I can't do that right now because I didn't toggle the settings yet, and I don't want to restart. But let's just say I decided I want this, I'm going to choose like this like brick-like color, like so. And I would say that. I can change the name of it. I'm going to say brick matte. And it shows up in your media browser here. And I can click that and I can drag it here. Now one thing is that because this is in V3, that's actually covering over everything. And it's not going behind, which is what I want to happen. So if that's happening to you, you can just kind of click these, move them up, bring your brick mats here, or whatever it's called, and you can click and drag the length of it, the duration of it, to match the length of your clip. And there's what it looks like with a custom background. Once more. Great. A random thing that you should keep in mind is that when you're playing it in Premiere, you'll notice, especially if you're going from the hand-drawn animation using the method that I did, it's going to feel really pixelated. It's not actually going to look that pixelated when you export it. And if you see here, it looks much more just like a hand drawing. And another thing I want you to keep in mind, and the reason why we made all of these PSD files, is let's say there's something that's not working quite right. For example, I think I noticed something on mine here. If I were to toggle this off, and you can toggle off any of your layers by clicking the eyeball. So that removes that, then removes that. If you see down here, it looks like I forgot to color in that little tiny triangle pink. So if there was something wrong with any of your stills, you can take a look at it. So let's see, this one is still A9. I can click on that in my media browser, right click it, and then I'm going to say edit in Photoshop. So I'm pulling up Photoshop, and it's giving me all the information, all the stuff, all the layers that I was using already before. And so now I can just continue where I left off, just do that right there, that little patch that I forgot. And then I can hit save or Command S. And then you can go back into Premiere and take a look at it. And here I'm going to hover here. And you'll see there it is. That little triangle got covered because it got updated here on the media browser. One thing that I've noticed happen for me is that sometimes when I update a PSD file and then I look back into Premiere Pro and I play it like so. Again, I told you my playback is being really laggy because I'm recording screen. But sometimes it's actually laggy because you've updated a file. And if that's the case, what you're going to have to do is you're actually just going to have to delete it. You're going to say yes. It's going to ask you, it's saying it's being used in clips. You still want to delete it. You're going to say yeah. You'll have some missing teeth right there. But if you just re-upload it, hit OK again, place them back where they needed to be, the playback should be as smooth as it was normally. Again, mine is not super smooth because of the screen recording, but if that's happening to you, then that's how you fix it. One last thing I wanted you to keep in mind is that sometimes when you drag these PSD files into the timeline, mine are numbered, very organized, A1, A3, A5, and sometimes it will jumble, especially if you have double digits. It might put A1 before A7 because 1 is less than 7, but it doesn't know it's 11. If that happens, just make sure that you rearrange it in the proper order that you intended it. And that's it. That's how you composite in Premiere Pro. You can add even more video tracks if you wanted to by right-clicking and going to Add Tracks, but I think most of us at this point are doing a max of 3. Try this out, and for those of you that end up switching to just video editing in the second half of Video Art 2, this is a great introduction to that.